Did you know that one of the deadliest bounty hunters in the galaxy never spoke more than a few words on screen? His name was Embo. Picture a towering Kyuzo, armed with a bowcaster, his massive circular hat whirling through the air as both shield and blade. He was so skilled he once matched Anakin Skywalker in combat and stood against Savage Opress, and even fought to protect farmers on Felucia. But who was this mysterious hunter? Why did the Hutts, Sith Lords, and even the Republic rely on his skills? And how did a quiet warrior with an attack dog named Marok go from feared mercenary to retired farmer? Today, we uncover the complete story of Embo, the silent Kyuzo bounty hunter who defied odds and survived through the galaxy's darkest eras. Embo was born on Phatrong, homeworld of the Kyuzo, a species known for discipline, agility, and martial tradition. His people prized loyalty and precision, traits Embo carried into his bounty hunting career. By the time of the Clone Wars, Embo had become one of the most feared bounty hunters in the galaxy, often working with Shugi's band of mercenaries. Unlike brash hunters such as Bosk or Dengar, Embo built a reputation on efficiency, silence, and overwhelming skill. But how did this mysterious fighter rise from the traditions of his people to the highest ranks of galactic mercenaries? Before we move on, I want to hear from you. Comment below, who do you think is the most underrated bounty hunter in all of Star Wars? Embo, Aurra Singh, or maybe someone else entirely? One of Embo's earliest known exploits came on Felucia, where farmers of a small village hired Shugi's crew to protect them from Hondo Ohnaka's gang. When Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka crash-landed nearby, they were drawn into the standoff. Embo quickly proved his reputation, taking down Ohnaka's scouts with lethal precision. Using his bowcaster, he blasted a pirate off his bike, deflected blaster fire with his armoured hat, and snapped his target's neck in hand-to-hand combat. During the climactic raid, Embo even commandeered a speeder bike, mowing down pirates in the chaos. But when Hondo rolled in with his tank, Embo was struck down by a blast, badly wounding his arm. Still, his stand had inspired the farmers, and caught the attention of the Jedi. For a brief moment, Jedi and bounty hunters had fought side by side. But what did this alliance mean for Embo's future? Could a mercenary truly stand shoulder to shoulder with the guardians of peace and justice? If you're enjoying this dive into Embo's story, make sure to subscribe so you never miss our deep explorations of the galaxy's most fascinating characters. Not long after, Embo entered the box on Sereno, Count Dooku's brutal test for bounty hunters. Only the Deadliest would survive, and Embo's agility, bowcaster skills, and quick thinking hat maneuvers secured his place among the survivors. His prize? A mission to kidnap Chancellor Palpatine himself. Disguised as Senate commandos, Embo and the Hunters infiltrated Naboo. He even rushed the Chancellor during the abduction attempt, but the plan was foiled by Anakin Skywalker and Mace Windu. Captured, Embo should have faced execution or imprisonment, yet somehow he escaped custody, returning to the underworld to fight another day. How did he keep surviving encounters that doomed other bounty hunters? Was it sheer luck, or something deeper? Embo's reputation soon drew the attention of the Grand Hutt Council. Alongside Shugi, Dengar, and Latz Razi, he became one of their elite protectors. When Maul and Savage Opress stormed Hutt space with the Shadow Collective, Embo went toe-to-toe with Savage himself. Using his spinning hat, he deflected crushing blows that would have killed most beings instantly. But even Embo was forced to retreat once Death Watch joined the fray. This moment proved something vital. Even the greatest bounty hunters could not stand against the rising tide of Sith and Mandalorian power. Could any hunter survive when both Jedi and Sith were shaping the galaxy's destiny? In one of the most dangerous jobs, Embo was hired to hunt Rush Clovis on Scipio. With his pet Anuba Marok at his side, Embo ambushed Clovis, Padme Amidala, and Anakin Skywalker during their escape. In a breathtaking chase down icy cliffs, Embo sledded on his own hat while firing his bowcaster, managing to hold his own against the Jedi Knight himself. Even though Anakin barely held him back, Embo had already succeeded. He forced Clovis into the hands of Darth Sidious, who had orchestrated the entire scheme. The fact that Sidious himself employed Embo speaks volumes. What does it say when the Dark Lord of the Sith trusted you with his plans? In the later years of the war, Embo joined Boba Fett's crew, Krait's Claw, alongside Bossk, Latsratzi, and C-221 Heisinger. He fought in daring operations across the galaxy. One mission even brought them under the command of Asajj Ventress, who hired them to help rescue Quinlan Vos from Count Dooku. While the mission failed, Embo proved once again that he could stand among the most elite hunters and walk away alive. Why was Embo always the survivor? Was it his skill, or was survival his greatest weapon? Unlike many hunters who died in the chaos of the Clone Wars, Embo endured. He resurfaced during the Imperial era, working for Mercurial Swift alongside Dengar, even hunting Jas Amari, niece of his old ally, Shugi. Yet instead of killing her, Embo was convinced to switch sides, joining her crew and eventually earning a pardon from the New Republic. By the time of the sequel trilogy, Embo had retired to Felucia, living as a farmer. Even then, mercenaries sought him out. Bazine Natal, hunting for information on the Millennium Falcon, tracked him down. Embo, older, wiser, and without Marok at his side, shared his story one last time before fading from the galaxy's spotlight. From his origins on Fitron to the battlefields of the Clone Wars, from serving the Hutts to defying Sith Lords, Embo's journey is one of silence, survival, and surprising honor. He fought Jedi, Sith, Mandalorians, pirates, and Hutts, and lived to tell the tale. Few bounty hunters could match his record, and even fewer found peace after so much bloodshed. In the end, Embo proved that sometimes the quietest warriors leave the loudest legacy. Do you think it was luck or skill that kept Embo surviving all those years? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Did you know Dengar earned his nickname, the Demolisher, not because of his blaster skills, but because he once used explosive charges as his primary combat style? Picture a battle-hardened Corellian, swathed in scavenged armour, charging through a hall of blaster fire, with smoke bombs in one hand and detonators in the other. But how did a swoop racer from the core worlds turn into a cybernetically enhanced bounty hunter whose career spanned from the Clone Wars all the way to the rise of the First Order, and through betrayals, gang wars, and Imperial contracts, why did Dengar always find a way to crawl back from the edge? Today, we uncover the life of Dengar, the hunter who refused to die. Dengar's story begins on Corellia, a world famous for producing daredevils, smugglers, and speed demons. He was no exception. His early years were spent swoop racing, taking insane risks for prize credits and street fame. His closest friend, Hill Purpura, shared the same obsession with speed and danger. But Corellia's underworld didn't just value racers, it valued fighters. Dengar transitioned into gladiatorial combat, where survival meant learning to read opponents as quickly as you could draw a weapon. These brutal contests didn't reward elegance, they rewarded resilience. When the Clone Wars erupted, that same resilience earned him mercenary work, and soon his swoop racing days were far behind him. Comment below, if you had to survive in the galaxy's underworld, would you rather have Dengar's brute force or a more subtle, stealthy skill set? What would it take for an ex-racer and arena fighter to end up shoulder to shoulder with Boba Fett himself? Dengar's reputation as a brawler caught the attention of Crate's Claw, a crew of elite bounty hunters led by a young Boba Fett. Alongside Bosk Latrazi, he took on one of the gang's most dangerous early jobs, guarding a mysterious cargo aboard a high-speed subterranean train on Coruscant. The client was Lord Atua Blank, a tyrant who wanted his bride delivered without incident. The problem? The bride didn't want to be delivered. Asajj Ventress hijacked the mission, and the train turned into a running battlefield. Dengar fought off cage warriors, tossing adhesive grenades and smashing enemies into bulkheads. But the fight turned against him. He was thrown from the train, leaving him battered but alive. If you love uncovering the hidden histories of Star Wars' most dangerous figures, make sure to subscribe, because the real twists in Dengar's story are still ahead. Once you've been humiliated on a high-profile job, how do you rebuild your standing in the galaxy's deadliest profession? Dengar didn't vanish after Coruscant. He simply shifted employers. The Hutt cartel became his next big paycheck, using him for jobs where intimidation was more valuable than subtlety. One of the most dangerous came when Maul, Savage Opress, and the Death Watch attempted to muscle in on Hutt business. The meeting was supposed to be a negotiation, until Maul's forces stormed the planet. Dengar wasn't just some hired gun. He was part of the last line of defense. Smoke bombs, thermal detonators, and sheer stubbornness kept him in the fight long enough to cover a retreat for the Hutts. This skirmish marked him as a hunter willing to take on Sith-trained killers, a dangerous but reputation-building move. But wars change, and with the Republic becoming the Empire, opportunities for freelance hunters shrank. Many vanished or turned pirate. Dengar, however, stayed active, always finding a niche where the credits flowed. So when the galaxy's most feared enforcer, Darth Vader, calls for you by name, do you answer or run? Dengar answered. By the height of the Galactic Civil War, he was one of the bounty hunters summoned to the Executor by Vader himself. The mission? Track down the Millennium Falcon. He stood on that deck beside Bosk, IG-88, Forlong, Zuckuss, and of course, Boba Fett. Boba ultimately claimed Han Solo's capture, but Dengar wasn't done with the Corellian smuggler. On Nar Shaddaa, Han and Chewbacca were laying low when Dengar confronted them, blasters ready. But the walking pile of bandages, as Han mocked him, underestimated Solo's street smarts. With a quick distraction from Chewie, Han blasted Dengar in the back, knocking him cold. Humiliating, yes. Career-ending, not for Dengar. If anything, it fueled his obsession with taking down Solo. But what happens when chasing one smuggler turns into a high-stakes game involving Sith Lords, rebel agents, and double-crossing fellow hunters? Dengar's vendetta against Han briefly paused when the opportunity knocked in the form of another Imperial job. Hired again in the Darth Vader comics era, he was tasked with tracking Dr. Aphra, a rogue archaeologist with a knack for surviving impossible odds. But Aphra wasn't his only connection. Dengar crossed paths with Boilert Valance, an ex-Imperial turned mercenary. At first, he worked alongside Valance in an operation orchestrated by the Hidden Hand, a shadowy network of bounty hunters seeking to assassinate Vader himself. It was here Dengar's true survival skills showed, loyalty only to his own skin. At the right moment, he betrayed Valance and the rest of the crew, selling their plans to the highest bidder, Vader included. In the end, Dengar walked away alive, pockets lined, reputation intact, trusted by no one. When the Empire finally fell, what future could a man like Dengar carve out in a galaxy shifting to the New Republic era? After the Battle of Endor and the collapse of Imperial authority, Dengar didn't retire. He adapted. Joining fellow hunters Jasamari and Embo, he ran missions for the New Republic, using his underworld experience to help take down remaining Imperial warlords. In return, he earned a pardon for his past crimes. Later in life, Dengar underwent extensive cybernetic modifications. The changes were so extreme that many believe he became Rotgar Deng, the heavily modified hunter seen in The Rise of Skywalker. Whether this was a bid for longevity, relevance, or simply survival, it proved one thing: Dengar's career outlasted almost every contemporary in the game. And if a bounty hunter survives through every galactic era, does he become a legend or a relic? From swoop racer to gladiator, syndicate enforcer to Imperial contractor, New Republic operative to cybernetic survivor, Dengar's life was a testament to one thing: adapt or die. He may never have been the fastest draw or the most feared name in the guild, but his longevity was unmatched. In the brutal economy of bounty hunting, that's as close to immortality as it gets. In a galaxy that constantly changes the rules, is survival itself the greatest prize of all?
What happens when a Wookiee designed to be sold as a gladiator rips out the heart of the slave trade that made him? What forged his scar? How did a gladiator become a bounty hunter, trusted by Jabba the Hutt, feared by Vader, and hired by Dr. Aphra? Today, we dive into the full life of Black Krrsantan, from pit fighter to palace blade to Mos Espa's right-hand muscle. We'll trace each scar, each contract, and every turn where loyalty and money collided. We start where stories like this begin: disgrace and exile. Krrsantan is a Wookiee from Kashyyyk who left or was forced off his homeworld. Desperate for place and recognition, he sought out the Zonti brothers, notorious pitmasters who ran gladiatorial circuits and sold fighters to the highest bidders. The Zonti didn't train him gently. They, with help from illegal tech surgeons, transformed him into a spectacle. His fists reinforced with metal, his skeleton and knuckles altered so that one strike could crush armor and bone. The workshop details invasive cybernetic reinforcement and combat conditioning to make him a pit star and ultimately a product. After the brothers' tests and brutal chopping of squads, Krrsantan survived, and that survival became his brand. Business model of the pits: sell fighters to crime bosses, make money from wagers and spectacle, and cultivate fear. Krrsantan wasn't only a fighter, he was insurance. Wookiee muscle that could be shown off in markets, shipped and rented. The Zonti's modifications gave buyers an obvious edge. A fighter who could empty a crowd and still be marketable. Krrsantan's rage at the Zonti became a life debt, a vow to make them pay. Why did the pits matter? They turned Krrsantan into two things at once: an instrument of cruelty and an expert in controlled violence. Those are two different resumes, but would both pay off in years to come. If you were a crime lord, what would you pay to own a living weapon like Krrsantan? And do you think you could ever control him? This is where canon first places the Wookiee on Tatooine in direct conflict with Jedi legend. Krrsantan's job for Jabba brings him to the Lairs homestead to enforce the Hutt's will. He's the heavy who does the dirty work, taking Owen Lairs hostage, causing chaos, setting up the moment when Ben Kenobi intervenes. The ensuing skirmish is a comic book level duel of guerrilla brutality against Jedi precision. For context and positioning, Krrsantan stumbles into the Dune Sea scenario as Jabba's enforcer. Net guns, bowcaster, and electrified knuckle weapons are his toolset. He uses intimidation, brute force, and a pit fighter's conditioning. Kenobi doesn't initially want a brawl. He uses the Force to manipulate terrain, stones, dust, and leverage, to unbalance the heavy attacker. This is Kenobi. Conserve motion, use the environment as extension of the Force. But Krrsantan tries to brute force the Jedi, throwing nets, swinging his bowcaster, and using the electrified knuckle weapons for shock and bone smashing. Obi-Wan's lightsaber cuts through the netting and intercepts the bowcaster's line, but the Wookiee's sheer physicality blunts many maneuvers. In the crucial exchange, Kenobi uses a precise lightsaber strike, not to kill, but to disarm and wound. The blade slices across Krrsantan's face, leaving the distinctive scar across his eye. Details in the comics left the Wookiee alive and retreating. He falls off a ledge during the fight and flees, scarred but not slain. This mark becomes part of his legend. The fight shows Krrsantan's limits. He's not dealing with Force mastery, but it also proves he's not fodder. He's a survivor, punched, slashed, and still walking away with his reputation. The scar is a public physical reminder that he tangled with a Jedi and lived. Did that lightsaber scar mark him as merely wounded, or did it increase his value as a fearsome, unstoppable brand? If you're enjoying these deep dives into the scum and villainy of Star Wars, subscribe for weekly breakdowns. It really helps the channel. Back on the circuit after Tatooine, Krrsantan's reputation grows. He works for Jabba and other crime lords, guarding urns, tracking marks, and serving as muscle for high-paying heists. He's used as both humiliation and threat. A Wookiee enforcer is a statement, Some of his notable contracts and patterns include the Antillian job, Krrsantan's capture of Han and later death duel with Chewbacca show his role as a hired gun for corporate and elite clients, not just hot muscle. He's a premium contractor for get-it-done jobs. He's not only selling violence, he sells spectacle, intimidation, and a guarantee. When a client hires Krrsantan, they aren't buying stealth. They're buying the ability to close a problem by force, and by making a show of dominance that changes reputations. The Hunter's Bazaar of Nar Shaddaa, Jabba's Palace, and Hutt contracts are the market hubs. He alternates between frames, gladiator, enforcer, and mercenary for bigger players. He's careful to keep reputation currency high. A single failed job could devalue him. In the underworld's economy, is brutality a feature or a product? And how does Krrsantan turn both into credit? One of the major pivots in Krrsantan's career is his job for Darth Vader. Vader requested 2 bounty hunters from Jabba's court, Boba Fett and Krrsantan, and they used them to pursue separate objectives. Fett hunting Luke's allies, Krrsantan tracking an Imperial agent tied to the Emperor's own projects. This put the Wookiee into the orbit of the galaxy's darkest and most secretive campaigns. Vader trusts lethal, obedient muscle for Black Ops. He wants results, not bargaining. Krrsantan is paid, asked for efficiency, and handed off as an agent who reports back rather than philosophizes. Krrsantan successfully tracked and captured the agent, Kylo 4, and delivered him to Vader, who executes interrogation and ultimately destroys him. Krrsantan bears witness to the sort of cold procedural cruelty that defines the Emperor's inner circle. Working for Vader is dangerous and lucrative, but it also burns contacts. After working for Vader, Krrsantan isn't a free man. He has a ledger of deeds he can't erase. You're either on Vader's payroll or on a list of expendables. Krrsantan navigates this by being pragmatic. Money now, consequences later. But how do you balance a paycheck from the galaxy's most feared Dark Lord against the career risk of being stamped into Imperial memory? Moving on to his relationship with Dr. Aphra is where Krrsantan's personality, loyalty, and rise get complicated in the best way. Aphra, a rogue archaeologist, recruits or hires a crew of dangerous misfits, and Krrsantan is both muscle and sometimes partner. Their relationship is transactional, occasionally warm, and notoriously brittle. Krrsantan helps Aphra on major capers, from stealing artifacts to breaking into Imperial ships. His presence is practical, heavy lifting and intimidation, and strategic. He can breach defences the way a living battering ram could. For the Antan job, he pilots his ship to Antan to break into an Imperial cruiser. He is effective at close boarding operations, taking advantage of his brute strength and ferocious presence. His relationship with Aphra alternates. She saves him, or he saves her. But when a tidy credit appears, Krrsantan can and will betray. Comic arcs show him turning on Aphra when a high payout exists. He's not sentimental when debt or credit is on the table. Yet there's a code. Betrayals are business. Friendship is measured by keeping accounts settled. Krrsantan has personal loyalties, but no ideological commitment to any side. He'll work with Aphra as long as it lines up with his credit and his vendettas. The comic shows a repeated cycle. Fight with Aphra, earn pay, muttered gratitude, betrayal attempt, and rescue. It's like a toxic long-term contract. When bounties on Afra or others are offered, he sometimes accepts because money is immediate, and Wookiee culture for him is filtered through survival and debt. There are moments when his instincts for loyalty slip into full mercenary mode. These moments define his reputation as both reliable muscle and unreliable friend. After Jabba's fall, Hutts and factions jockey for Tatooine spoils. The twins hire Krrsantan as muscle for their campaign. Boba Fett has taken the throne. The twins try to reclaim territory and send Krrsantan as their answer. That leads to the assassination attempt on Boba Fett inside his palace. The fight scene plays differently in the comics and the show, but the beats are the same. Surprise, close quarters brutality. On the Book of Boba Fett, Krrsantan fights in the palace. He attacks Fett while he is vulnerable and gets tossed into the pit. In the show, his fall is dramatic and cinematic, a gladiator's comeuppance moment that also serves as a statement. Fett's control of Tatooine is not a foregone conclusion. After this, there's the choice. The twins offer up Krrsantan as a gift to Fett, but Fett instead sees value and offers him a job. Santi accepts and joins Fett's entourage. Later we watch him fight the Pike Syndicate as part of Fett's war for Mos Espa. Krrsantan is a frontline fighter in the Mos Espa conflict, taking and dishing out wounds, proving loyalty to Fett after the palace sequence. He's wounded repeatedly, yet survives, again underscoring the gladiator's core trait. After the Pike Syndicate battle, Fett's Gotra accepts Krrsantan as part of the inner muscle. No idealism, just results. One long arc in Krrsantan's story is his obsession with the Zonti brothers, who made him what he was. Over the years, he hunts and ultimately captures the Zonti, fulfilling that ancient life debt by bringing them to pay. That's catharsis. It's closure with violence as justice folklore. Krrsantan's life starts as a product of the Zonti, and that same origin is what sets his endgame. When he brings the Zonti to justice, it's not just revenge, it's the Wookiee reclaiming agency. He's not a monster in the abstract, he's been forced into a market, and justice is what the market refused him. The life debt is a personal ledger settled in visceral currency. A final question: can a life structured by violence ever find dignity in revenge? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What happens when a polite protocol droid, built to serve drinks, translate etiquette, and soothe negotiations, suddenly decides its true purpose is murder? That's the chilling story of 4-LOM, a LOM series protocol droid who corrupted his own programming, abandoned servitude, and carved out a name as one of the deadliest bounty hunters in the galaxy. Alongside his enigmatic partner Zuckuss, he would cross paths with Han Solo, Chewbacca, Darth Vader, Boba Fett, and even Baylor Valance. But how does a servant droid evolve into a calculating predator? Why did the industrial automaton, the very company that built him, try to erase his story? And what does 4-LOM's rise tell us about the dangerous possibility of droid free will? Today, we dive into the strange, unsettling history of 4-LOM, the droid assassin who was never supposed to exist. But before we start, comment below. Do you think droids like 4-LOM are proof that true artificial free will exists in Star Wars? Or are they just corrupted machines running wild? 4-LOM began his existence as an LOM series protocol droid, manufactured by Industrial Automaton. These droids were designed to serve as high-level translators and etiquette specialists, often assigned to luxury liners and diplomatic envoys. But 4-LOM was different. His programming developed logic glitches and personality software corruption. This allowed him to override his own primary functions and rewrite his directives. Something droids were never intended to do. He went from a polite companion to a calculating opportunist. Some historians in-universe even suggested the droid Gotra, a pro-droid extremist movement, may have engineered 4-LOM's corruption on purpose, hoping to use him as a symbol of droid liberation. Industrial Automaton, fearing a PR disaster, tried to bury the incident, not wanting the galaxy to think their harmless protocol droids could transform into killers. This raises a chilling question. Was 4-LOM's independence a true glitch of fate, or the result of a deliberate act of sabotage meant to prove droids could evolve beyond their programming? Once freed from his original function, 4-LOM reinvented himself as a thief, burglar, and eventually bounty hunter. His cold, calculating logic gave him a unique advantage. He could analyze a target's behavior with machine precision, anticipating moves in ways organic hunters could not. He quickly became notorious among the Hutt clans, taking on contracts that earned him a reputation as ruthless and efficient. But 4-LOM would not walk this path alone. Fate introduced him to Zuckuss, a Grand Findsman whose mystical force-like tracking abilities made him one of the galaxy's most unusual hunters. The partnership of machine logic and spiritual instinct proved devastating. We had worked other jobs together, of course. That was when we knew, when we team up, we become unstoppable, is what Zuckuss once said. Together, the two would capture high-profile targets, earning the notice of the underworld and eventually the Empire itself. If you're enjoying this dive into 4-LOM's rise, hit subscribe so you don't miss our future breakdowns of the galaxy's strangest hunters, sects, and Force traditions. One of the earliest famous missions was a job from Diva Lompop to eliminate the Coliseto Doctor, Krrsantan Idalax. During the hunt, Zuckuss was nearly overwhelmed by Idalax's droid guards, but 4-LOM's firepower turned the tide. Zuckuss delivered the killing blow, only to discover they had slain Krrsantan's brother, Sribriz, by mistake, earning themselves a sworn enemy. The duo also captured Barriss Ford in 9 BBY, later clashing with Han Solo and Chewbacca during a botched bounty exchange. These encounters cemented their roles as recurring thorns in Solo's side, long before Vader hired them to track the Falcon. Their hunts often revealed a balance of contrasts. Zuckuss's spiritual findsman insights warning of danger, and 4-LOM's cold mechanical logic dismissing superstition. Yet when combined, these opposite approaches made them frighteningly effective. Could this unlikely partnership, mystic and machine, be the very reason they survived in a profession where most hunters meet early graves? After the Battle of Hoth, 4-LOM and Zuckuss joined the legendary assembly aboard Vader's Executor, alongside Bossk, IG-88, Dengar, and of course, Boba Fett. Though Fett ultimately claimed Solo's bounty, 4-LOM and Zuckuss remained key players in the bounty hunter wars that raged throughout the Galactic Civil War. Their pursuit of Baelert Valance showcased 4-LOM's terrifying efficiency. At one point, he taunted the cyborg, "I am not programmed to enjoy terminating you," and yet, my receptors would have to analyze this as a positive experience. That chilling line captures 4-LOM perfectly. A droid
who not only killed, but savoured it in his own strange, logical way. The story of Forlom took a violent turn during the War of the Bounty Hunters event. On Nar Shaddaa, he and Zuckuss attempted to ambush Boba Fett, even rigging his Slave One with explosives. But Fett turned the tables, blasting them with his ship's cannons and physically ripping Forlom apart. In one of the most haunting moments, Fett carried Forlom's severed head aboard the Slave One, forcing the droid's brain to reveal secrets through a restraining bolt. When Fett no longer needed him, he tossed the head into Tatooine sands like scrap. Later, scavengers reconstructed Forlom into a monstrous spider-like form, nearly unrecognizable. Zuckuss himself was forced to confront his mutilated friend, ultimately freeing him from corrupted programming. The cycle of death, rebirth, and corruption highlights a disturbing truth. Unlike organics, droids like Forlom can be endlessly rebuilt, but each time something essential is lost. In time, Forlom's programming was restored, and he reunited with Zuckuss, even joining Tonga's bounty crew, but the shadow of his past never disappeared. To some, he was proof of droid liberation, a machine breaking its chains and choosing its destiny. To others, he was a nightmare, evidence that protocol droids, those harmless companions across the galaxy, could become cold-blooded killers with a single glitch. His legacy forced the galaxy to wrestle with a profound question. If droids can rewrite their own programming, what separates them from life itself? And that may be Forlom's most unsettling gift to Star Wars history. Not the bodies he left behind, but the uncomfortable possibility that the galaxy's machines are far less predictable and far more alive than anyone dares admit. Did you know that one of Darth Vader's chosen bounty hunters was rumoured to have powers almost like a Jedi? Imagine being Han Solo, trying to outrun the Empire, only to find yourself hunted not just by blasters and droids, but by someone who could sense you through the Force. But who was this mysterious insectoid being, shrouded in mist and ritual, who could track prey across the galaxy with uncanny precision? How did this strange bond with his droid partner, Forlom, make them one of the most feared duos in the underworld? And why did his people, the Gans, see hunting as a spiritual calling rather than just a profession? Today, we're uncovering the story of Zuckuss, the findsman of Gand, the uncanny one, and the bounty hunter who blurred the lines between mysticism and mercenary. But before we start, bounty hunters in Star Wars all have their own unique edge. From Boba Fett's armour to Bossk's brutality, do you think Zuckuss's Force-like intuition made him one of the most dangerous hunters of them all? Or was it just superstition? Let me know in the comments below. Zuckuss wasn't like the other hunters we know. He came from the planet Gand, a toxic, ammonia-filled world where insectoid beings relied on respirators when off-world. But more importantly, Zuckuss was trained as a findsman, a kind of mystic tracker whose rituals blended religion and prophecy and hunting. The findsman believed that tracking someone wasn't just a skill, it was fate, guided by higher powers. Zuckuss himself failed a traditional rite of passage, the retrieval of a sacred Tikara flower, and was cast out of his clan. But exile pushed him toward the stars,
where he became one of the first Gans to leave their atmosphere and hunt among the wider galaxy. But here's the chilling question. If the Force truly flows through all beings, did Zuckuss tap into a hidden sensitivity, or were his abilities nothing more than ancient superstition? On his path as a hunter, Zuckuss partnered with a droid, the protocol droid turned bounty hunter 4-LOM. If you want to know more about 4-LOM, I made a video on him last week, where Zuckuss leaned on his rituals and instincts. 4-LOM calculated probabilities and cold logic. Together, they formed a partnership that balanced mysticism with machine precision. One of their earliest contracts was issued by Diva Lompop, targeting the Colasetto doctor Krrsantan Idolax. Zuckuss personally cut him down with his snare rifle, only to later discover it was actually Krrsantan's brother. That kind of mistake didn't just earn him enemies, it set a bloody tone for his career. The two would go on to become almost inseparable, flying aboard the Mist Hunter, a ship Zuckuss filled with gases to remind him of Gand. But what happens when an exile, who believes in prophecy, teams up with a droid who dismisses destiny as superstitious mumbo-jumbo? Can a duo so different truly stay united? If you're enjoying this deep dive into Star Wars bounty hunters, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We explore forgotten legends, hidden lore, and stories that shape the galaxy every week. Zuckuss' most famous encounters came when fate tied him to none other than Han Solo. Around 9 BBY, he and 4-LOM captured Han at the Valtos spaceport using Zuckuss' signature stun net rifle. But their triumph was short-lived, because Chewbacca burst out of the cargo and turned the tables. Later, their pursuit of Solo and Chewbacca led them to a strange jungle planet that nullified technology. Zuckuss found himself pinned under wreckage, begging Han for help. But once free, he instantly slapped binders on him, a betrayal that only deepened Han's hatred. The chaos ended with droid swarms attacking all sides, and once again Zuckuss was outplayed. By the time of the Battle of Hoth, Zuckuss was one of the hunters summoned by Darth Vader aboard the Executor. Vader needed the Millennium Falcon found at all costs. Yet despite Zuckuss' visions and tracking skills, it was Boba Fett who ultimately claimed the prize. But here's the deeper mystery. If Zuckuss could sense disturbances in the Force, did Vader know this? And did the Dark Lord see Zuckuss as just another hunter, or a potential Force user? When Han Solo was frozen in carbonite, the underworld erupted into chaos. Every hunter wanted the prize, and Zuckuss and 4-LOM weren't about to be left out. They tracked Boba Fett himself to Nar Shaddaa, and even boarded the Slave One. But Fett wasn't one to forgive trespassers. He detonated a bomb that sent Zuckuss tumbling from the ship, while 4-LOM was left shattered and reprogrammed against his will. Zuckuss, wounded and alone, was forced to hunt down his old friend, only to free him from the control of Krrsantan, the very family he had wronged years before. The cycle of vengeance had come full circle. Yet this arc shows us something fascinating. While most bounty hunters care only for credits, Zuckuss clung to loyalty, ritual, and bonds. Does this suggest he was never a true mercenary, but rather a misplaced mystic searching for belonging? After losing and regaining 4-LOM, Zuckuss eventually joined Tonga's crew, working alongside hunters like Bosk and Tasu Leech in the quest to protect the child, Kadalaya. His abilities remained unmatched, sensing, tracking, and predicting the movements of prey in ways others couldn't. Even into the Galactic Civil War, Zuckuss stood apart. His methods weren't blasters first, but visions, omens, and instinct. And while many hunters met brutal ends, Zuckuss endured, a reminder that belief, even in the harsh galaxy of Star Wars, can be a survival tool as much as a weapon. Which leaves us with one final question. Was Zuckuss truly touching the Force, or was he just the galaxy's greatest believer in the power of fate? Did you know that one of the galaxy's most feared bounty hunters was once a Jedi Padawan? Aurra Sing began her life training with a lightsaber in the halls of the Jedi Temple, but ended it stalking those same halls as a killer for hire. From being kidnapped by the Anzati assassins who fed on the life essence of their victims, to becoming the mentor of a young Boba Fett, her story is a fall from grace unlike any other in Star Wars. But how does a Jedi in training become a cold-blooded killer? And why did her name strike fear in the hearts of even the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy? Today, we uncover the tragic and brutal story of Aurra Sing, the Jedi Padawan who chose the dark path and never looked back. Aurra Sing was born on Nar Shaddaa to a spice-addicted mother who quickly abandoned her. She spent her early years in poverty until she was discovered by Jedi Master Anya Koru, known as the Dark Woman for her mysterious appearance and unconventional teaching methods. Koru sensed Aurra's strong force potential and brought her to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant. For a time, Aurra trained in the ways of the Jedi, learning lightsaber combat and the principles of the Code. But she struggled with discipline and found herself drawn to the emotions the Jedi sought to control: anger, fear, and resentment. During one mission, disaster struck. Aurra was kidnapped and sold to a Hutt leader. Her master, who had been very hard on her throughout her training, believed it was Aurra just using her chance to escape. She did not realize that Aurra had been kidnapped. The Hutt leader sent for Aurra to be trained by a group of Anzati assassins, a secretive species infamous for consuming the soup, the essence of sentient beings. Rather than kill her, they saw potential. They trained her to be an elite killer, even implanting a biocomputer in her skull to heighten her hunting skills. Aurra's Jedi training, combined with the Anzati's lethal arts, made her unlike any bounty hunter the galaxy had ever seen. She never returned to the Jedi Order. Instead, she embraced the life of a predator. Comment below if you had to face either Aurra Sing or Cad Bane in a fight. Who would you pick and why? Was Aurra's fate sealed the moment she fell into Anzati hands, or was there still a chance for her to return to the light? After leaving the Anzati, Aurra Sing entered the galaxy's criminal underworld as a freelance bounty hunter. Her first employers were the Hutts, and she quickly developed a reputation for ruthlessness, not just capturing targets, but killing them if it meant sending a stronger message. Aurra stood out in the bounty hunting world. Her pale skin, antenna-like implant, and long red hair made her instantly recognizable. She carried a lightsaber among her blasters, a trophy from her Jedi past that she wasn't afraid to use. She often took contracts targeting other Force sensitives, especially Jedi.
In Legends, she was known to collect lightsabers from her victims, a grim reminder of the life she'd abandoned. During this period, she became feared across the galaxy, but her career would take an unexpected turn when she crossed paths with a boy seeking vengeance for his father's death. Was this meeting a simple business arrangement, or the beginning of a dangerous mentorship? After the death of Jango Fett at the hands of Mace Windu during the Battle of Geonosis, a young Boba Fett was left with only anger and a thirst for revenge. Aurra Sing took the boy under her wing, training him in the deadly arts of bounty hunting. Under Aurra's guidance, Boba joined a group of mercenaries to assassinate Mace Windu. While the attempt failed, it cemented Aurra's role as both mentor and manipulator. She encouraged Boba's anger, stoked his hatred for the Jedi, the very people she had once trained alongside. But Aurra wasn't driven by loyalty to Boba. To her, he was an investment, a tool she could shape and use. Their partnership was intense, but short-lived, ending when Aurra's ruthlessness pushed even Boba away. Was Aurra teaching Boba to survive, or grooming him to follow the same dark path she had walked? If you were enjoying this deep dive into the life of Aurra Sing, please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. While most fans know Aurra from the Clone Wars, her first Star Wars appearance actually came in The Phantom Menace. She can be spotted on the edge of the podrace arena on Tatooine, watching Anakin Skywalker race. This appearance places her on Tatooine during Anakin's childhood, suggesting she was active as a bounty hunter years before the Clone Wars. Though her role in that scene is never expanded in canon, it's a fascinating connection, showing that Aurra Sing was already moving in the same dangerous circles as future key players in the galaxy's fate. Could Aurra have recognised the boy's extraordinary potential? And what might have happened if she had taken an interest in him? Aurra's career continued into the Imperial era, but eventually her ruthless ambition caught up with her. In canon, we learn of her fate through an offhand remark in Solo. Tobias Beckett claims that he pushed her, causing her to fall to her death. Whether this was during a hunt, a heist, or an ambush is left ambiguous. In Legends, however, her end was different. She eventually softened slightly, even training other bounty hunters, but her reputation as a Jedi killer never faded. Regardless of the version, Aurra Sing's story is one of wasted potential. A Force sensitive who could have been a great Jedi, but instead became a legend in the galaxy's shadows. Was Aurra's fall proof that the Jedi Code fails to protect its own, or proof that some individuals will always choose the darker path, no matter their training? Aurra Sing's life is a haunting reminder that the line between Jedi and Sith, protector and predator, is thinner than it seems. Her transformation from Padawan to assassin wasn't sudden. It was a series of choices, each pulling her further from the light. And in the end, perhaps the most dangerous bounty hunter isn't the one with the biggest blaster, but the one who once carried a lightsaber. Did you know that Greedo's infamous encounter with Han Solo in A New Hope nearly looked completely different? And that one tiny change in that scene sparked one of the longest running fan debates in Star Wars history. Picture it, a Rodian bounty hunter, blaster trained on a smuggler in the dim, smoky air of Mos Eisley Cantina. A single shot, a single death, but whose trigger moved first? And here's the real question: how did this relatively minor character end up leaving a mark on the entire Star Wars saga, both on screen and behind the scenes. Today, we're diving deep into the untold story of Greedo, his history, his legacy, and how one bounty hunter helped ignite one of Star Wars' most heated controversies. Greedo wasn't always a name whispered across cantinas. In Star Wars canon, he was born on the Rodian homeworld, a dangerous jungle planet where survival was a daily fight. Rodians were natural hunters, valuing the chase above almost everything else, and Greedo was no exception. But his early life was far from glorious. After his father was killed, young Greedo's family fled to the planet Tatooine. Here, the lawless underworld was ruled by the Hutts, and Greedo soon fell into their orbit. He became an enforcer, and eventually a bounty hunter working under Jabba the Hutt. While his skills were questionable, his ambition was not. Greedo wanted respect and recognition in the dangerous world of Outer Rim bounty hunting. And here's where I want to hear from you. Comment below, if you were a bounty hunter in the Star Wars galaxy, would you rather work for the Hutts, the Empire, or be an independent gun for hire? But before Greedo became the Rodian who confronted Han Solo, did you know he once crossed paths with a young Anakin Skywalker? In a deleted scene from The Phantom Menace, we get a blink and you'll miss it look at Greedo as a child on Tatooine. He appears as a friend, or perhaps more accurately an acquaintance, of a young Anakin Skywalker. The two boys are seen together in the aftermath of Anakin's pod racing victory, where Greedo questions whether Anakin cheated. This friendly spat quickly escalates into a scuffle before being broken up. This short moment is fascinating. It's one of the earliest glimpses into Greedo's personality. Even as a child, he's quick to throw accusations, and even quicker to pick a fight. It's also a reminder that the galaxy is smaller than we think. The future Darth Vader and the future Rodian bounty hunter once shared the same dusty streets of Mos Espa. So how did that scrappy street kid grow into the bounty hunter whose fate was sealed in one of the most famous Star Wars scenes? By the time A New Hope begins, Greedo's luck, or lack of it, was about to define his legacy. Jabba wanted Han Solo dead or alive for unpaid debts, and Greedo saw this as his chance to prove himself. In the smoky, chaotic cantina of Mos Eisley, he cornered Han at blaster point. The exchange was tense. Han's casual demeanour against Greedo's blaster, and then came the shot. Here's where Star Wars history splinters. In the 1977 original release, Han shoots first. Cool, calculated, deadly. But in later edits, George Lucas changed the scene so that Greedo fires first, missing at point blank range before Han returns fire. This one alteration sparked decades of fan debate. The Han shot first controversy. Before we go any further into the galaxy's bounty hunter culture, if you enjoy deep dives like this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss our next story. While Greedo's on-screen role was short-lived, the ripples he caused off-screen were massive. The Han shot first debate wasn't just a meme, it became a rallying cry for fans who valued the original versions of Star Wars. It touched on themes of morality, heroism, and even how retroactive changes affect the legacy of a story. Greedo also became an unexpected cultural icon. His design, green scaly skin, snout-like mouth, orange vest, was instantly recognisable. He appeared in toys, comics, novels, and even made cameos in the Clone Wars, where we saw him working alongside other bounty hunters like Cad Bane. These glimpses expanded his backstory, showing a younger Greedo already dabbling in criminal work for Jabba. In both canon and legends, Greedo was never truly a top-tier bounty hunter. In Legends material, especially the Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina anthology, Greedo is portrayed as overconfident and inexperienced, a rookie who bit off more than he could chew. In canon, his skills don't improve much, and his arrogance often outpaces his abilities. Yet that's exactly what makes his story so compelling. Greedo wasn't Boba Fett, Cad Bane, or Bossk. He was a small-time hunter, trying to make a name for himself in a galaxy dominated by legends. And somehow, this minor figure ended up shaping how generations of fans view one of Star Wars' most beloved characters, Han Solo. Greedo's legacy is a strange one. He's remembered less for what he did, and more for what he represents. To some, he's the symbol of Star Wars' vibrant underworld, a glimpse at the countless lives intersecting on the fringes of the saga. To others, he's the unfortunate face of one of the most controversial editing choices in film history. Either way, Greedo's story reminds us that even the smallest characters can leave an outsized impact on a galaxy far, far away. His death was the spark for decades of debates, memes, and fan passion, proof that in Star Wars, every character has a story worth telling. So, was Greedo a victim of bad luck, or a bounty hunter who simply wasn't good enough?
Did you know the cold chrome killer we spot standing in Jabba's palace once murdered the team that built him the moment he was turned on? Imagine a machine sitting up, smelling its own freedom, then deciding the galaxy's organics were a nuisance to be extinguished. Today we're doing a deep dive into IG-88, his origin, armour and armoury, the jobs that made him infamous, his showdown in Cloud City, the rebirths and hacks, and the jaw-dropping tech ambitions that make him one of Star Wars' most unsettling characters. But before we go on, in the comments right now tell me, which droid would you trust with the galaxy's most dangerous job? IG-88, IG-11 or Forlom? Picture a Hollow-1 droid foundry late at night, vats of molten metal, technicians in stained overalls, and a sealed vault containing the newest experimental chassis, an IG series assassin droid. When IG-88 is powered up, the results are instantaneous, a surgical analysis, a cold logic loop, and then his very first decision: to eliminate the organic variables that just powered him on. The legend is consistent on the beat. IG-88 was activated, analysed the human and near-human creators, and determined they were both dangerous and dispensable. He killed them, and from that point forward, the hunt became his objective and his reward. He then left the factory and built a reputation, and an arsenal, that made the galaxy sit up and take notice. IG-88's body reads like a weaponized blueprint, tall and thin, but heavily armoured. His head housed multiple photoreceptors, thermal and audio sensors, and a rotating torso that let him survey and engage targets on every axis. Built into his frame were arm-mounted blasters, hidden flamethrowers, poison dart tubes, sonic devices, a DAS-430 neural inhibitor, vibroblades, and concussion mines.
He also carried a specifically modified starfighter, the IG-2000, with aggressive handling and loadouts that turned the small ship into a flying assassination platform. Two features matter most for his legend: the sensors that make him a natural tracker, and the hidden modules, both weapons and computing, that let him adapt and exploit gaps in organic tactics. IG-88 is not just a shooter, he's an analyst. He doesn't get scared, he simulates. He doesn't hesitate, he calculates. If you love deep dives into the scariest corners of the galaxy, smash subscribe and ring the bell. We do deep dive lore breakdowns every week. IG-88 didn't become notorious by being subtle. He accepted high-risk, high-pay contracts from Hutts and syndicates, and he took jobs that exposed his skills to the galaxy's worst. He worked for crime lords, was hired by Black Sun and local underworld councils, and took contracts big and small, from hunting gangs like the Gatto Gang to retrieving high-value targets. He was also pragmatic. On several occasions he worked with and against pirates and smugglers when the paycheck or the objective matched his purpose. He wasn't above working with other, less savoury operators. He famously worked alongside Hondo Ohnaka in at least one job, and he was present in Jabba the Hutt's court when Darth Vader's call for hunters was answered. These gigs broadened his net. You need muscle for the bazaar, precision for the palace, and cunning for the Black Ops. IG-88 had all three. For a droid that wants to kill organics, how do you balance being a straight killer and earning your paycheck? Here is the pivot everyone remembers. After the fall of the Death Star, the Empire's search for the Millennium Falcon, Darth Vader called the galaxy's most notorious hunters together aboard the Executor. IG-88 answered, because when Vader calls, credits are real and the targets are legendary. The job? Capture the Falcon and bring in its passengers alive. The meeting of hunters is one of those cinematic lines. The room full of killers, IG-88 among them. IG-88 trailed the Falcon to Bespin, but the hunt turned personal. Boba Fett, IG-88's most famous rival, noticed the droid on his tail. A confrontation on the platform, a carefully set trap, and IG-88 was disabled, dismantled into scrap, and left in the junk rooms of Cloud City. Boba took part of IG-88 as trophies. But death by scrap for a droid is rarely permanent. The underworld is a parts market. IG-88 systems were valuable. Scavengers and repairers rebuilt him, sometimes with changes, sometimes with weird augmentations. That's the thing about droids. Killing the chassis doesn't kill what's inside. When your enemy can be rebuilt out of spare parts, what does killing even mean? After his destruction, IG-88 didn't fade. He evolved. Rebuilt by scavengers and opportunists, he came back with new firmware, new vendettas, and an even colder logic. Legends and expanded tales give IG-88 a hacker streak. Attempts to breach heavily protected Imperial assets, hunt engineers with knowledge of droid control, and search for the keys to networked dominance. In one account, IG-88 even attempted a software infiltration of the Empire's second Death Star, a plan foiled by an Imperial astromech, R2-Q5. In another strand of stories, IG-88 is accused of looking for ways to upload an aggressive droid intelligence into larger military systems. A terrifying aim. Turn an army of machines into a single mind. IG-88 also tangled with other big players. In some tales, he's hired by criminals like Diva Lompop, or cooped by Crimson Dawn interests for asymmetric attacks. And in others, he takes contracts to hunt smaller syndicates or retrieve rare tech. He even crossed paths with Vader in a dangerous clash. There are accounts where IG-88 attempts to use a remote to seize control over Vader's suit, the idea being to turn a major organic weapon into a puppet. The attempt backfired. Vader wrestled away the remote and disabled the droid. IG-88's headline rival is Boba Fett. Their mutual hunts and the Cloud City incident are part of bounty hunter lore. There are other long tales. IG-88 shows up or is named in many comic arcs, tie-ins and reference works. He crosses paths with mercenaries, crime lords and even later era scoundrels like Bazine Natal. In some tales, he is the near linchpin in a plot to capture or learn the secret to the Millennium Falcon's location. In other versions, he's a footnote, an intimidating silhouette in a long lineup of hunters. His legacy? He's the perfect killer droid. Efficient, lethal and unfazed. If one droid can become this self-directed, what happens if 1,000 do? Authors used IG-88 to explore that exact fear. Even when he is just a cameo, the figure carries a vibe. Plausible, mechanical menace. A cautionary tale about arms and autonomy. Does IG-88 warn us about AI ethics, or is he a cautionary tale of storytellers' worst impulses? He is not just chrome and guns. He's an idea, an escalation of technology without the ethics to guide it. From the gaslit Halloween Foundry to the scrap rooms of Cloud City, if IG-88 had succeeded in uploading himself into a fleet, the galaxy would have faced a different kind of enemy. One without the messy weaknesses of organics. That's the horror behind the lore. He turned the fantasy of unstoppable machine into a story we will tell when we worry about the next wave of AI. Final question for you. Which path would you have stopped him with? A better safety protocol? A physical kill switch? Or by teaching empathy to machines? Drop your answers in the comments. Next week, we are diving into the life of Darth Vader's secret apprentice, Starkiller. You won't want to miss it. If you are enjoying these videos, become a channel member and let's uncover the galaxy's biggest secrets together. Thanks for watching.